RV Unplugged is brought to you by the National RV Training Academy, the largest RV technical career college, Alliance RV, RV Mattress by Brooklyn Bedding, Grand Design Recreational Vehicles, and the Jayco family of companies.
Well, I am on the right of something. I'm Ryan Miller of Miller's in Motion, and I am here at RV Unplugged to whoop everybody and win this thing. So back in 2019, my wife and I started our YouTube channel, Miller's in Motion.
There are two kinds of people in this world. The kind that run turkey trots and the kind that don't.
There's three. There's the people that are forced to.
Being a kind of travel hacking and just general travel all over the US without quitting our full-time jobs, we really wanted to show everybody that you didn't necessarily have to completely give up working to travel a bunch of different places. We started that journey in December of 2019, and you can kind of do some math here on a calendar. By March or April of 2020, travel was pretty much done for. So we decided to just kind of let the channel simmer, let it go, focus on work and everything else. And throughout COVID, as well as the rest of our lives, we were more intrigued by the RV community and full-timing. So in January of 2022, we purchased our first RV, put our house on the market, and hit the road and relaunched our YouTube channel under the exact same name. As far as what we do now, our YouTube channel pretty much focuses on the adventure side of RVing, coupled with when we unintentionally break things so people can learn from our mistakes, hopefully. She also shows equestrian sport horses, so jumper horses. So a lot of our travels do rotate around that based on her show schedule throughout the US. I have a little bit of a more unique story. I started off as a golf professional, teaching professional, as well as a head golf professional and director of golf at a number of country clubs around Texas. Also had a very mediocre playing career, which I'm still very proud of, but never quite made it all the way. Over the course of time in my career, I actually transitioned to something that I truly love, which is travel. We created, along with a partner of mine, a golf-oriented travel company called 2 Getaway Travel. This division was specifically called Golf by 2 Getaway Travel. And we were sending people all over the world to play golf, and then that expanded into general travel and all kinds of things. And so I truly get to work in a field that I absolutely love. You know, now that international travel and obviously domestic travel has pretty much opened all the way back up and is completely clear, you know, the company's doing great now. We're actually expanding into more music events and specialty events, to where we've hired agents to do kind of the daily bookings, and I've gotten to focus on some of the more, what I consider more fun things, like some of our music events and specialty travel. My wife is a practicing physician assistant in the state of Texas. She does work at her clinic, her outpatient clinic, year-round. She could not be here because she still does work a full-time job that she has to come back to every so often.
Well, I couldn't imagine talking about how we met without actually having Lauren present, so.
When we met, we were both in college, and we actually went to different colleges, but we had some mutual friends, and it just so happened that we were at the right place at the right time, I guess you could say. And we went out together with a big group, and I guess you could say that the rest is kind of history from there. It just kind of grew and evolved at that point.
Well, to a point, somebody may have skipped a day and come down to Stephenville, where I went to school.
I was known for not always going to class when I should have been, but that's
what happens
okay.
when you're overly smart and you can get away with doing stuff like that.
The grades never showed, don't worry.
Yeah, but you came down to Stephenville and we kind of hung out for an afternoon and had dinner, and that was our first really official date.
Right.
And then we just stayed connected after that. And
then you moved up to where I was living, and like we say, it just kind of grew at that point. And then I told him that after I'd gotten my first degree, I'd planned to move to Austin for my next one. And there is a part of me that half expected him to say, well, I'm staying here, and he actually beat me to Austin.
Yeah, I found a job post-school that was in Austin, and that allowed me to get there, and it just happened to start before you were planning on moving, and so I moved down before you did.
Right.
And we had been living together at that point too.
Right.
Briefly. So whenever we went down, but yeah, that was for us, that was a distinguishing point in our relationship because there was a move commitment now all of a sudden. So we were still dating and
yeah, we were still pretty young and stupid. We had a long way to go at that point.
But we lived in Austin for a little while. And then we actually got engaged, in San Antonio, but we were living in Austin.
Right.
We had been together for 2 years when we got engaged, and then we stayed engaged for another 2 years.
Right.
We weren't in any hurry to get married. We didn't feel like it changed anything.
No, but also, given that time frame, I finally would have been 21 at our wedding, and I wanted to be able to have champagne and drink at my own wedding.
I always thought it was because you wanted our anniversary to be March 1st, 2008, because I remember the first more than any other dates, and the timing just worked out right.
Yes, then we got married, and then we moved actually back up to DFW where our parents and our families were, and we worked there for a little while. We did move 9 times in 8 years, and if we'd been smart, we really would have invested in the RV thing at the beginning. That would have made life a lot easier.
In retrospect.
So after moving around as much as we did, we were really excited about the idea of having a house and staying put. And
I was more excited about not moving again.
Exactly. And so that accomplished quite a few things for us and was gave us a lot of breathing room, a lot of stability for a long time. So after moving into the house and graduating with my master's degree, I was kind of at an awkward place for the first time in my life. I graduated high school when I was 16 and got 3 college degrees, and now I didn't have a new challenge in front of me. And that's where the horses came in. That was completely new. I'd grown up around horses, but never really ridden, and especially not competitively. And one of our neighbor friends rode, and I kind of took a liking to it. And so after my master's degree was when I really started taking lessons to do jumping horses. And at that point, you know, the joke, every little girl wants a pony. And so I told my husband that I wanted a pony.
So we bought a bunch.
So we bought 5. Actually 6, I guess, technically,
Yeah.
Chief.
My wife, in her career, she's been practicing now for a little over 10 years. Obviously, for everyone in the medical industry, COVID was a little bit harder on her because she was the one that had to actually go treat it. And the amount of stress that put on her and her colleagues and really everyone in the medical industry to take precautions to not have to do things back at home.
Tonight, across the country, death rates, once declining, are now trending up, with death tolls surging more than 50% over the last month.
The first sucker punch was, if you remember what happened at the very beginning of 2020 that shut down most of travel.
Most of?
All of.
Yeah.
Literally all of. So
Except for RV.
So there was that kind of sucker punched the travel company and many of our goals right there.
Right. For the channel.
For the channel, absolutely. Well, and personally too,
Well,
we
yeah.
weren't able to do much. But that was kind of the first hiccup, and I practiced medicine. So that was my world, and that was all in my brain cells, and it was new, different, unforeseen, I guess you could say.
Well, and that was hard across the board,
Yeah.
just as a frame of reference, because the emotional toll that, you know, people talk about now, like what everybody went through during COVID, and,
Right.
and it's starting to come out now what providers and medical professionals went through.
Right.
But for the people, and don't take this, nurses, everybody worked their rear ends off.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for the people that were actually treating the patients, the level of complexity that all of a sudden got tossed on them, and also their families.
Yes.
Because there would be days where you'd come home, and I remember you had a pair of shoes outside
Right.
and clothes that you would change into before
Yes.
you came into the house, simply
Absolutely.
to keep barriers.
So one of the things we realized as providers really quickly was that, one, we were at a tenfold higher risk of fatality from COVID off the bat because of our level of exposure. And 2, we were the highest risk factors to our families. And so his parents in their 70s, my asthmatic mom, like these were huge. And so that weighed really heavily on me. And we really staggered how we took care of our families and had to do that so that I wasn't going to be the one responsible for something tragic and unforeseen.
Right.
And so that meant changing clothes and sanitizing and all kinds of things, and spending every waking hour in research to make sure that we were all doing the right things. That in and of itself would have been enough. We were trying to maintain some normalcy, riding the horses, walking the dogs, doing what we could.
Golfing.
And then we kind of suffered the next sucker punch, which was the very sudden, unforeseen loss of my dad. So
I just said don't cry.
I know.
That was a hard one because COVID, I don't remember exactly, and let me start by saying he didn't pass because of COVID.
No.
We actually shot a video on the Fossil Rim Wildlife Preserve,
Right.
if that's the official name of it. And that video came out. Again, that was more for us and everybody else. It was the last time he was in a video.
It was our last video.
Was it?
It was our last video.
Gotcha.
Before we shut it down for COVID,
Yep.
which kind of ties that in as to why we wanted to bring the channel back.
Right. I remember we had a barbecue at our house, and it was, even then, it was still really unsure. It was the height of COVID, essentially.
Right. It was
But-
May. It was a surprise dinner for my mom for Mother's Day.
Yep. And so they came up to our place, and we just kind of hung out outside and
Right.
grilled and did all the things we normally did. And we didn't know that was the last time we'd get to see him.
That call came in the middle of the night, which is why now we have a favorites list, and they will blare through at any hour. That changed.
I remember your little sister called us a bunch.
Yes.
Your mom a couple times, but obviously she was dealing with that. But after about the 5th call, that we realized, I'm like, okay, what?
Yeah.
And that's when it was have Lauren call us quickly.
Right.
And that was a don't think, go.
Yep, absolutely. So, like I say, very unforeseen, very unexpected, and unfortunately, he was such a pillar that he took care of everything for Mom and my family, and so not only did it leave grief, but it also left a logistical nightmare of sorts. But
It did, but he was more than just the things he did for the family. He was kind of the backbone.
Right, absolutely. And I guess you could say for better or for worse, I'm the only one out of 5 kids, or my mother, who can think like he can. And so they were at a little bit of a loss as to some of his methods. And unfortunately, I was the key to unlocking some of those. And I still take on that role very heavily because she'll ask me questions that she doesn't understand. She doesn't know how to work. And that's been a lot of my role.
Yeah. But Lauren's handled that in a way that I know nobody else in your family could have. After he had passed, we were help cleaning out his office at work, and the journals.
Oh, good night, yes.
And so think engineer, right? He used grid paper for his journals.
Like graph paper.
Graph paper, yeah, sorry, because it was more precise than standard. That's the only thing, I never asked that question, but that's the only thing I can imagine.
He basically kept daily diaries and to a T of his activities and his projects and everything. When you see that, it gives you a bigger perspective as to who he was, and that kind of brings us around as to why we want to document what we're doing and keep that going, because someday maybe somebody will want to see that from us.
Right.
Among other reasons, the same things persist, that we want to be intentional about our travel and our relationships, but also maybe there's somebody who benefits from it, just like we did from his documentation.
Right.
I am beyond excited to be here. I'd obviously much rather have Lauren be here. She's the brains of the operation, so we're gonna see what just root physical strength brings to the table with not maybe as much brains. But I'm very excited to be here at RV Unplugged, and I tell you what, if you want a single person competing against a bunch of couples, if you want an underdog, right here, because I'm going to try and work as hard as 2 people. So do me a favor, show your support down below, show the love, support myself and my wife that should be sitting right here. Comment down below, Miller's in motion all the way, because they don't know what's about to hit them with one person randomly coming in here and just winning.